welcome back in to another episode of Where the Game Lives On, the official podcast of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Here we are in Season 3, and March Madness is among us, and I am so ecstatic. Byron Shive, how are you feeling about the madness being upon us?
One of my favorite weeks of the year. Certainly you get the brackets for the first time Sunday. It's like a kid at Christmas, and you just can't wait for the games on Thursday and Friday.
Absolutely, and one of the guys that's waiting for those games is our special guest today, 2023 inductee of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, Mr. Michael Watson, sir.
Hey, how you guys doing? Noah, Byron, doing all right?
Doing all right.
We're doing well. Appreciate you joining us.
Man, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I want to give you a little bit more of an introduction here. A graduate of Central High School in KC, turned UMKC standout for the Roos. I say standout, more like all-time leading scorer. Let's put that one on for size. Number 22 jersey retired, and then, as I mentioned, inducted into the Hall of Fame last spring after noteworthy time spent with the Celtics and 8 years overseas. Thank you so much for joining us, though. We appreciate it greatly.
Speaking of March Madness, KC Central grad, did you get a chance to go to Columbia? Central state runner-up.
I was right there like I was playing, Byron. I was up and down the road to Columbia, man. It was just a phenomenal season for Central High School. Coach Michael Golston and his staff. I mean, those guys overachieved. You know, they really only played 7 players the entire season, went through their conference season undefeated. And they have a 3-headed monster, one kid, Brandon Moore, and Tim Wood Jr. I mean, phenomenal player. So it was so much fun. Central hadn't been to state since '99, the year I graduated.
Okay.
And so it was so fun to just get back on the road. And I got a chance to take my son up there and kind of explain to him the dynamic of what it means to go to a state championship. And Misha always puts on a wonderful project up there at Mizzou Arena. So had a great time.
Yeah, I had a chance. Central actually came down and played in one of our Hall of Fame Classics down at Southwest Baptist University, and they came down and played, and I think Brandon Moore had 32 in that game. So
absolutely, that's him.
He showed out down in Bolivar. So
very impressive. Well, that's awesome. Keep the madness rolling, right? As we get into March.
Kick it off, maybe.
Before we get into this year's March Madness, though, let's jump back to last spring, whenever it was announced that you were going to be inducted to the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Obviously, you've had some time to process that. Been about a year now. What was it like as you reflect back on that experience?
Well, it's still an unbelievable honor. I remember getting the message from Byron and then calling it and not actually believing that, that was happening. I literally was like that. You see people say that on TV and everything, and I just didn't believe it was somebody. I seriously was like that. It's just a phenomenal honor. It's one of those things that you never expect. Literally, you never expect. And so to get that call and then to learn that one of my classmates, Muna Lee, was also going to be inducted, it was just like a full circle moment for us. Her and I were very close in high school. People didn't really realize that she played basketball. She's a really good basketball player. No one ever challenged her on the track because we knew better. But we were really close. And so to be able to call her and talk to her about it, it's just a great experience. And it's one of those things those honors that you get a chance to, actually experience while you're alive on this side of glory, right? And so to be able to be inducted with those people who were inducted, I mean, Beasley and Lorenzo Kane, those guys who I watched, as a fan, and then getting the opportunity to be inducted. And then they put that behind your name when they say Hall of Famer. It's one of those things where you're kind of like surreal. I work on television, and that's one of their introductions, the Missouri Sports Hall of Famer, Mike. And I'm like, man, it's true, And so I had a great time at the event itself. It was so well planned. It was great, man. Just in learning so much about Missouri sports history as well. Some of the teams who were honored, who I had never heard of, some who I had heard of, just in passing, and getting a chance to see them. It's so funny as adults, because we all age, but when you're that age, everyone is stuck in, high school. And so to see them there with their families, my family was there as well. So it was great, man. I really appreciate the honor. It's just, it kind of elevated the lore of Michael Watson, and because you don't really think about your career in that way. You just think about opportunity to compete, have fun, play a sport that really impacted and changed my life, and then to be honored like that, for me it was really special. It is really special.
Awesome. You mentioned TV work. What are you up to? You doing quite a bit of TV, or what's going on these
Yeah.
days?
Yeah, so for the last 15 years, even when I was still playing in my off season, I would start to work with Spectrum, so Spectrum Sports, before they turned to Spectrum News, and through that, the men Neil Harwell and John Sprugel, John Dennison, those guys who used to cover me in high school back to 95, 96, covered me at UMKC, then gave me an opportunity to get into the business on the color analyst side. And so I've got an opportunity to do that for high school games here, high school games of the week. I do all the UMKC games. And then I got opportunity to start, about 5 years ago doing the ESPN Plus games with, all over the country. The thing about technology is you can do it wherever now. We're sitting in a studio in Liberty and it's 30 degrees and snowing outside, but we're calling a game from, Texas where it's 77 and sunny. And we're calling a North Texas game. We call it a San Diego State game. We call, so many Gonzaga, so many games. And so that's just been fun. It keeps you close to the game. You get a chance to see the next who's who, coming through. And it's so funny. I've been in the game so long now. Some of the guys who were in high school playing when I called their games, Alec Burks and all these young guys, Trey Young, now they're professional athletes, Christian Brown and Ochai Obaji, those guys who we know personally. And now you see them, excel at the next level. And you get to do that by watching them and kind of analyzing the game. I always tell people analysts are just people who talk like they were the best player ever. And that's easy for me to do because I always thought I was the best player ever. So it's it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a cool little tidbit realization with Burke and Trey Young and all that.
Man.
But you can't be aging yourself like that, man. You can't do it.
I'm a Paul though, Noah. I have 2 grandchildren, so I didn't age myself. My daughters aged me. My oldest is married with 2 boys, Owen and Oakland, and so
there
I
you
get
go.
to play. I'm in that part of life, and I'm just like, oh my gosh!
You wear it with pride, man. That's awesome.
I got the grays popping in, and the hair left, and the grays came in, and that's just kind of how it goes. That's what we do now.
Be like.
I understand when people grow their beards when they get older. I'm like, because the hair leaves, so you got to grow your beard out. Makes sense.
You should be like me.
Some things you just learn with time, man.
Yeah. I turned 40 2 days after I turned 40 2 days after my daughter turned 1. So I waited too long. I'll be the grandpa at the high school graduation.
Oh, bless your soul. Yeah, exactly. So you'll be the reason that she gets jokes cracked on her when they come like, that's your grandpa? Like, no, that's my dad. And she's going to come home and she's like, Dad, just drop me off down the street. It's going to happen, man. Yeah, I'm still young enough to be I was young enough to be the cool dad. I was young enough to be, to be the cool dad who could come in and still kind of run around with my kids and everything and my grandchildren now. Woo, man, bless your soul. So you still like no one sleeping through the night, like you still in diapers. Oof. I'll pray for you, brother.
They make me feel young and old, usually within 5 minutes of each other. So
absolutely.
We'll reel it back in here. I love it. We talked about, you're doing the TV stuff as well. You've got the shirt right there, the Mentality shirt. That's your organization.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about what that is, what you do with that.
Yeah, so Mentality is our youth sports organization. We started in 2017. It was a friend coaching a team and asked me to kind of help him out, and I was like, I'll come to practice. I don't want to coach. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to watch. It lasted for about 5 minutes. I end up getting up and I'm like, hey, just coaching. Use basketball. It's like, I always say, if I ever got a doctorate, I have to be in basketball, and nothing else. And so we end up starting an organization with one team that's now grown to 18 teams. We have boys basketball, girls basketball, and girls volleyball. And so for me, it's just an opportunity to give, kids from our urban area here in Kansas City an opportunity to play high-level competitive basketball, get quality coaching, make it affordable through sponsorships, and really just be there, just giving back like, people gave to me growing up. I grew up in a single-parent home, so the coaches were, kind of a surrogate father. You get a chance to go to games with them and come pick you up for practice. And so being able to do that with our kids now has been a treat. I've watched our first group go all the way through, and now they're just finishing their college freshman year. Emporia State and Newman University and so many different places where I'm like, I remember those guys were 11-year-old, babies who would cry when they missed a shot, and now they're college athletes. And so that's just a blessing, the opportunity to see those kids grow and have a small impact on their trajectory and how they see athletics, and giving them opportunities to say, hey, man, this is a sport that changed my life. And if I can give you a little bit of that, then I feel like, we're doing a good job.
What age groups are you involved with mentality, Michael?
So we start kindergarten. We start 5 years old, man. So we got the babies. That's the most fun. Kindergarten through third, fourth grade is the most fun basketball you could ever have and ever see and ever coach. I mean, it's the funniest stuff. I mean, it's more on the floor. It's like wrestling and grappling. It's like more like that than it's actually basketball. And so if they dribble without falling, it's a success, So we have kindergarten all the way through ninth grade. So our 15U now is our oldest team. For our girls division, we have third grade through eighth grade. And volleyball is 13U through 18U. So, we kind of run the gamut with the age levels.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like what you do with your organization. It's to me, it kind of shows, we see so many people that get inducted, and they're great people. They're awesome people, and they're loved by their city. But what what you do there, I think for me, it shows not only are you loved in KC, you love KC.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Through and through. They're through and through. It's the city that, kind of shapes you, and especially where I grew up, in the part that I grew up in. You see some of the best athletes. I always tell people I wasn't even the best player on my high school basketball team. My senior year is a guy named Bill Winston to me, because he could do all things. He could rebound, shoot, play defense. He was tough. He was scrappy. We had on my team, out of the 12 players, I think 7 of them should have been Division I athletes, but because of different circumstances, grades, or whatever the case may be, they weren't able to make it. And I've seen a lot of players come through Kansas City who were just great athletes, but because they couldn't be the student athlete part of it, didn't get a chance to shine. And so to me, I always represented those guys because they helped shape my game. I was one of those players who try to pick up a little bit from everyone on my team who I played with, who I played against. I was just a sponge. I wanted to be the best. Wasn't even a good basketball player. I always tell people I was a football player growing up. Baseball was my first sport. Football was my first love. Basketball is just what I did to bridge those two sports back in the day. When I was an athlete and I was a competitor, I had a mentality. My mindset was I wanted to be the best. I wanted to compete. I couldn't make a left-handed layup to save my life. It was just so many things I couldn't do. But my effort and intensity was something that people never had to coach. And so when I'm out there, when I'm playing, I'm representing Kansas City. And that's why I stayed home to go to UMKC. At the time, I'm like, I just want to, put Kansas City on the map, as a young, teenage athlete.
Well, we'll get into some sports news nowadays. March Madness again in the air. And I don't know. I get a little excited for it. How are we feeling?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. No work's getting done on, is it Friday the game start? No work's getting done. Absolutely nothing. I have all the TVs in my office, set to I have the 4 games on one screen. And so it's going to be it's a great time to learn about players that you had never heard about. I've heard about them because we cover a lot of sports, but there's still some teams that'll sneak in. One of my former teammates, I played with in Puerto Rico. He's the coach at Wagner, Coach Copeland. And so I get a chance to watch his team, this year in the tournament. So I'm excited about that. You get a chance to see St. Peter's return, Long Beach State, stories like that. It's just like, man, it's like stuff you don't have to write. It just happens and it becomes epic and magical, and so I'm definitely excited about it.
Who's
that's
your
a weird situation at Long Beach
picks,
State,
Michael? Have you had a chance to look at the bracket? Who's your
upset?
upset picks?
I'm gonna tell you like this. Anybody who beats KU is my favorite team. So I'm gonna just start there. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm gonna put it out there. I know we're gonna lose some fans once they see
Belmont.
this, but any team that beats, I am always cheering against KU. And you will see it if you go through my history of my social media. It goes back to the 90s. I mean, I'm a 80s Big 8 Norm Stewart MIZ guy. That's just who I am. I'm an Anthony Peeler. He's the best player to me to come out of Kansas City next to Jerron Rush. And for me, I'm like MIZ,
Name dropping.
Hey, those are my guys, man. AP is the icon of Kansas City basketball. And so I've been a Mizzou fan since I can remember, and so anytime KU loses, it's the best time because both of my best friends are KU fans. But, I always tell them, hey, when Brandon Rush was there, I cheered for you guys, because Brandon Rush is the little brother of Jerron and Kareem. So we cheered for him. A couple years ago when Christian and Ochai ran through, well, I was rooting for him. So for me, I'm looking for, I think Illinois is going to be a big sleeper. They shouldn't be, but Terrence Shannon Jr., his father and I played together overseas for a couple of years. So he was a pro athlete. And so I'm looking at them. I think UConn will still be formidable. I think once they get it going, they're one of those teams you have to watch out for. And I think Houston, I think that loss, they needed that loss in the Big 12 championship game. I think that righted their minds because Coach Sampson is one of the best coaches and motivators in the history of the game. So I'm looking forward to it.
MSHOF, who's your Cinderella?
I don't know who my Cinderella is yet. I don't know. I'm not sure. Who you
Byron's
got?
got a knack. Byron's got a knack for picking these.
Does he?
Who are you sitting on, Byron?
I'm not. I was not sitting on Florida Atlantic last year. Or, I didn't have Miami. I didn't have
St. Peter's the year before.
St. Peter's last year. Brandon Lee was their star player. So Brandon Lee's father is Butch Lee.
Okay.
The old Marquette player, played for the Lakers championship team. He's Puerto Rican. So Butch Lee is the person who brought me to Puerto Rico to play professionally while I was in college. He was my coach. And so him and I are still close. I saw him a couple of months ago when I was back home in Puerto Rico. But his son, Brandon Lee, was a baby, literally was a baby walking around back when I first started playing professionally in Puerto Rico. Now he's at Missouri State. He's down there in Springfield, so that's the connection, to
who needs
Coach Lee.
Who needs Kevin Bacon? We got 6 degrees of Michael Watson.
I'm telling you, man, basketball it's a fraternity, man. All over the world, you're going to meet, you got to run into people. And then now you're old enough to know their kids and see their kids playing. It's great, man. It's awesome.
You got the ties for sure, man. I think my team that I might be, you always think you got, the insights, right? And then the tournament starts and it all goes out the window. I really think McNeese State might have a chance of making it to the second weekend of the tournament. Yeah.
Hey, that's a good one.
I really think they might.
Yo, those guys ball. Those were those teams that they think they belong there. That's a dangerous team.
Yeah. Isn't their head coach too? Wasn't their head coach a guy that was like at LSU or something?
Yeah, Will Wade. Yeah, so he has a guy on his team. I haven't seen an athlete like that in a long time. I mean, he dunks everything, and he's only like 6'2", 6'3". I mean, he's a high flyer. No, Will Wade's a good coach. I know he had his issue at LSU, but he knows how to recruit. And it's a certain kind of guy that he goes after. McNeese State is filled with them.
Long Beach State. What's your thoughts on that situation? You got the coach is fired and the team rallies around him, and
you know what? I love the fact that he showed up for his players. I think that is one of those things that is lost in college basketball because it's a business. We understand that. I'm not mad at it. But I love the way that he knew he was not going to be there, but he still showed up. He didn't woe is me, because he realized that it is an opportunity for those young men that they'll never get again. Why not us? Why can't we go win 3 games in a row and make this a run, for the ages? He also set himself up to get another job for next season, I think, as well. We're being real. But I heard him talk after the championship game, and he just said, it's for my players. And I love that. I know his players appreciate that. And that's why they played the way that they did. There was no one who had Long Beach State winning that conference tournament but Long Beach State. So it's incredible.
There's a lot of, Dan Monson's who we're talking about at Long Beach State. A lot of people are familiar with Gonzaga and Mark Few, but Dan Monson's who actually started that Gonzaga run way back in the day before Mark Few came on. So he
sure did.
Yep. So that's the same guy. He can coach.
He showed it.
Yeah.
See, it's going to look real bad for Long Beach State, though, at least their administration, if they continue to make a run.
No, that's what you want to do. You want them to make a run and embarrass the decision that the athletic director made, because you don't do that from a leadership standpoint. You wait until after the season. You had a struggle. You know that was happening. But you don't fire the guy before the conference tournament and tell him. I think you just don't do it, and it's one of those things. What if he says, you know what? Well, I don't even want to coach. Then you let those players down. Now you're losing players to the portal. It was just so many things that could have happened negatively. But Coach Moxley was one of those guys, one of those coaches, means the players coach, and they responded for him.
Well, he turned it into, he basically told them in the locker room, hey, the administration doesn't think we can win this. That's why they're letting me coach. And so they rallied around and took off. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Good for them.
That's
great.
I think
they got Arizona in the first round, so that'd be a heck of a story if they could pull that off.
I don't think they're going to be Arizona, but
I don't think
so. Rewind a year ago, Arizona gets beat early. Nobody was expecting that either. You know what I'm saying? They're good, though. They're good.
Nobody expected St. Peter's over Kentucky a few years ago either.
But hey, still my wild card. They get hot from three. They've got a decent path. I really think they do.
Yeah. St. Peter's?
Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Man, Kentucky just finds a way to shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, they just do. I mean, they're just one of those teams, and it's just like, you just never. There you go. That's a stamp right there, man. That should be their motto, because it's just, you just never know. Literally, it's hard to like, okay, which Kentucky team are we going to get? Like, you just don't know. They could be turnover prone one game, like you said, and then the next game it looked like they could beat an NBA team.
Well, they can't.
It's just one of those things with them.
So they can't guard a shadow. So. Who else you think's going to make a run? We got UConn, Houston. You've said. Who else you like?
UConn, Houston. I think Arizona. I think Arizona is going to be there at the end. Yeah. I don't have a sleeper team yet. I hope South Dakota State. I hope they can be the Cinderella team this year, coming out of the Summit League. They got a local kid on their team, from Lawrence, Kansas. So I'll give him some props from South Dakota State, and they play really well. I'm thinking UConn, Houston, Arizona, and Illinois. I think Illinois is going to be another team. So those are my teams.
We saw Virginia a few years ago be the first team to lose to a 16, and then they came back the next year and won a national championship. This year you got Purdue. They lost last year to Fairleigh Dickinson. What do you make of Purdue, and what are their prospects this March?
Purdue is like Kentucky to me. They're not as bad, but they're still unpredictable, because they can be a dominant team. And it not just from Edey on the inside, from their guard play as well. They can change the game, but in the tournament, it's all about, are you able to put that 40 minutes together during the tournament? We've seen time after time, and they were an example of it as well, where you come in, you overlook an opponent, you don't respect the opponent, and then they bring it to your face, they bring it to your doorstep. But they're one of those teams that, to me, even though they're so good, they're still a sleeper team. They're still a team that many don't expect to do much. And they're like, okay, they're kind of hiding behind the Houstons and the Arizonas and those kind of teams, but they can really make a run, and they can do it. But it's like Kentucky, not as bad again, but what team is going to show up?
Yeah. One thing that bugs me about Purdue too is like they shoot like 72% from the free throw line. You know what I mean? You get into those late game situations, you start choking at the free throw line. That's how you lose some of those close ones.
The thing that worries me about Purdue is the tournament is guard heavy. It's guard focused, and obviously their best player is Zach Edey. And you mentioned their guards. Their guards, if they're hitting threes, they're tough to beat, but they have a bad game, and
there you go.
Purdue's going home. So.
Yeah, that's what they could be a sleeper team. They could be sleeping at home, or they could be sleeping on the road. You just never know.
I don't have a bracket, but I think that they could get Utah State pretty early, second round perhaps. That's a tough. I mean, Utah State's loaded. They were, I thought, underseeded, but anyway, it should be a fun March.
Colorado State.
Yep.
That's another team that I think could be a sleeper.
Yeah.
I forgot about them. Colorado State. They had a great start of the season, but they're one of those teams that could really beat anybody in the country on any given night. I really believe that. So I'm going to put them there as one of my sleepers.
I couldn't sleep one night back in January and turned on a late night basketball and caught a Colorado State game, and they were impressive. So if you stay up late, you're familiar with the Mountain West.
All the time.
I want to get your opinions on something, Michael. Something that was a headline on Monday. Several notable teams that you could maybe call snubs for March Madness declined invites to the NIT. That included like St. John's, Oklahoma, Pitt, Ole Miss, Indiana. What do you feel like? What do you think about that? Like, I've never heard of that really being a fad.
No, that's something that is not normal for teams to decline that. Usually a postseason opportunity, whether it be the NIT, doesn't matter, is an honor. And so I think for those guys to kind of decline that, probably for different reasons. I think the landscape of recruiting is different now. Yeah. And so those teams may like, hey, we're going to get a jump on recruiting because we're going to lose a lot of players. Players have a lot of flexibility, they have a lot of power. And you have to make those decisions that are best for the program. You're playing, 2-3 games down the stretch in the next couple 3 weeks, and players are making decisions to get in the portal, and you don't have an opportunity to recruit those players. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. I think being upset, just kind of taking your ball and going home kind of thing happens as well. Like, you didn't pick us, so we're not going to play. As if you're doing a disservice to the tournament. You're just having a disservice for those players and for those fans who support you all throughout the season, who want to see you continue to play. And so I think, if I'm a university, I'm not leaving that to the teams. As an athletic director, I'm going to make that decision, or a president of a university. I'm going to make a decision for our team to play. It's also financial reasons that teams don't, choose to play in those. Are they going to lose money? Are there, they probably have lost money throughout the season. They don't want to continue to hemorrhage, those dollars. And so they're like, okay, we're not going to do it. Of course not, the big schools, we know they're not losing money because they have football programs, their athletic budget is pretty healthy. But for some of those other teams who may not have that opportunity, they're counting the cost. Because now you got NIL, you got to pay these players to play. And so it's a lot that goes into making that decision. But I just think for the love of the game, the respect of the game, respect of the NIT tournament, where so many really good teams, come through, play well. The next season they're back in the NCAA. I think you take the bid, you play in those games.
The recruiting with the transfer portal and all this, it gets a head start with the tournament, and teams in the tournament kind of get behind the 8 ball. He said he thinks that's something. It's an easy fix. Transfer portal doesn't open up until after the season's officially over. Yeah. Final Four is done. I think that's probably impacting it a little bit too. We make the NIT. We know guys are leaving. Let's jump on the portal and not worry about playing these games with some dudes that are going somewhere else.
I agree. That's a great point. But will they do it? I think the NCAA is in so much flux right now. They don't know. They're coming or going half the time. They're trying to figure out how to keep control, and the best way to keep control is like when a car is on a wet road. What do they tell you to do? Let the wheel go. It'll correct itself. But you kind of control it and overcorrect, and then you end up crashing and hitting something. I think the NCAA is on that slick road, slippery road, and they're out of control. They're still trying to control that wheel. They need to let that wheel go. Figure out how to adapt and adjust. Everyone has to do it. If we learn anything from COVID, we learn how to adapt and how to adjust. And that in life, you will have to do that. And so it's those guys having to make those decisions. You got to get innovative in how you are the NCAA, like who you want to become if you're going to stay relevant. Because now you have these opportunities for these power conferences. They can just, align with themselves, have their own tournament if they want to, get their own sponsors, after the NCAA deal, expires for that. It's so many things that can be done. So the NCAA has to be smart, and kind of let go of that wheel so they can keep a hint of control over what has become, college basketball, college sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Byron, any thoughts on that?
No, I was just getting ready to bring it up myself with the transfer portal. I think it's an excellent point, especially your comments on the NCAA. Let go of the wheel. That's about as great an analogy as you can come up with. So,
yeah, I like that for sure. Well, we're coming down to the end of our time here. We talked a lot of ball today. I want to remind you, we've got the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame Bracket Challenge, which is back. You can find information on that on our socials. We'll also put it in the description down below. Enter for a chance to win some prizes. 1 entry per person, no purchase necessary. Let's all watch this madness unfold here in the next few days. Hey, Michael, we really appreciate you joining us, man. It means a lot. Congratulations on your induction again.
Yes.
And hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Man, thank you guys for having me. I love to talk sports. Any opportunity that I get, we can talk about it. I'm like a kid in a candy store. So I appreciate it. Again, a year later, looking back at the induction, man, it's truly an honor. And I just appreciate, Byron and everyone who had a hand in selecting myself and Muna to be in such a prestigious, field as something that I'll cherish the rest of my life. So I really appreciate it.
Well, congratulations. Certainly well deserved. Keep up the great work with mentality as well.
Thank you, Byron. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you made it this far in the episode, be sure to follow us on socials. Stay up to date with everything happening at the Hall of Fame. We've got new episodes every Wednesday, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Byron, anything for the people?
Nope. Let's get to Thursday and Friday and have some fun.
That's it.
Absolutely. We will see you next time on another episode of Where the Game Lives On.